Welcome to today's video where we will be exploring one of the most aggressive openings in chess, the Fried Liver attack. This opening is a favorite among many players as it enables white to launch devastating assault on the black's king and even win in just a few moves in certain variation. Whether you are a beginner or an expert, the Fried Liver attack is a powerful weapon that can help you dominate your opponents. So stay tuned to learn how to use this opening to its full potential. Fried Liver attack starts off with the moves e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, and bishop c4, which is the Italian game. And in this position, for the Fried Liver attack to work, black has to play the move knight to f6, in which will play knight to g5, which will be the Fried Liver attack. The reason why black has to play the move knight to f6 is because if black plays other moves, for example, bishop to c5, bishop to e7, pawn to h6, pawn to d6, or any other move, we cannot play our knight to g5 because now the queen will be defending the square on g5, and because black plays knight f6, now the queen no longer protects square on g5, which is why we can jump our knight to g5 now and launch the Fried Liver attack. So now we're putting pressure and threatening to capture the pawn on f7. The only way for black to defend is to move up his pawn to d5 to block our bishop. If black plays a move like to e7, it doesn't matter because we can still capture the pawn on f7 anyways. So black has to play pawn to d5 to block out the diagonal of our bishop. Here, we just capture the pawn. Black will most likely capture back as well, and they'll probably think that their position is fine because now the queen attacks our knight, and black's knight now covers the square on f7, and they think that the f7 pawn is protected. However, in this position, firstly, we sacrifice our knight with knight takes f7. Black is forced to recapture the knight because otherwise we just fork the knight, the queen, and the rook. After king takes f7, now as we can see, we have this really nice pin with our bishop on the knight, which is the key theme throughout this whole video. And now in this position, we play queen f3 check. Queen not only gives check but also attacks the knight on d5 now. And as you guys can see, we now have two pieces attacking the knight on d5. If black tries to hide his king in the corner, for example with king to g8, it's actually already checkmate in the next few moves. We play bishop captures knight, and his king has no moves. Black is forced to sacrifice the queen, capture back. Now the only move is to protect with the bishop, the block, and we just capture the bishop and give checkmate. And just like that, in 10 moves, it's already game over. So instead of playing king to g8, black has to move his king up the center of the board to e6 to protect the knight on d5. Because if he plays any other move, for example king here, we just capture the knight with our bishop and we threaten to give checkmate on f7. And if he tries to block with the queen to f6, again we just capture the knight on d5 with check, and cannot block check with his knight because that will be an illegal move as the knight is in pin. King is in pin because of our bishop. So black has to move his king up to e6 to protect the knight. Now we play knight to c3, bringing an additional attacker to attack the knight on d5. And here black has two key moves. Black can defend his knight on d5 by either by playing knight to b4 or knight to e7, trying to defend knight on d5. So let's first take a look at knight to e7. This is actually not the main line. This is the second most popular line, and the main line is actually knight to b4. Because in this variation, by moving the knight back, the knight kinda stops black pieces from any development. For example, the bishop unable to move forward, and it kinda blocks the queen as well. So in this position, now we play the move pawn to d4. The whole idea with pawn to d4 is we want black to capture, and we open up e-file to give extra checks on the king. This is a similar idea which we can see later on, where it tries to defend the knight this way with knight to b4, because we can also castle and then bring our rook to e1 to give check as well. So in this position, black can try to defend the d5 square again with pawn to c6, which is also another common idea which we'll see later on with the other variation with playing knight to b4. So now in this position, we just capture the pawn on e5, and it's actually not easy for black to find a move here because all his pieces are tied up. Black definitely doesn't want to play king takes e5 because that will just bring his king closer to the center of the board, and as mentioned earlier, the bishop is tied up. The light square bishop cannot develop as well because that will just block the queen from defending the knight on d5. So let's say black tries to play a move like pawn to b5, attacking our bishop. We just retreat our bishop, and now he tries to play pawn to a5, trying to trap our bishop. But here we have a really nice move with bishop to g5, and white's position is just too dominating, as not only we have this initial pin, now we have the second pin as well with our other bishop on the knight and the enemy queen. And on the next move, white can even castle queenside and getting a third pin with the rook on the queen as well, and this position is just crushing. So instead of pawn to c6, let's see what happens if black captures our pawn on d4. Now, since our knight is under attack, we just capture the knight on d5, black recaptures, and because since the e file is now open, we play queen to e4 check. And now the king has to move to the right side, because if he plays, for example, a move like king to d7, the knight is now free to capture, and it is actually checkmate in the next few moves. If black tries to block with the bishop, now we just have queen to f5 check. If he goes king here or king to e8, doesn't matter, we give queen to f7 checkmate, and if he moves his king up to c6, give him checkmate this way with queen to b5 check. So in this position, if he tries to play king here to d6, again, we just capture the knight with check. He moves his king back, and we just give now bishop g5 check, followed by winning the queen on d8 on the next move. Which is why, in this position, the king cannot go to the left, and he has to go to the right side, in which we just capture the pawn first with check. King has to go towards the right side, again, away from the center of the board, and we just capture back the knight. And in this position, even though we are only a pawn up, we regain our material from sacrificing the knight on f7 earlier on, but due to black's king's position is really weak, he cannot castle and still relatively in danger, and it's a very easy position for us to play. So these are some of the key lines where black plays knight to e7 to defend the knight on d5. But before we check out the other line, which is the main knight to b4, if you're enjoying the content so far and want to see more videos like this, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you never miss out on the latest chess strategies and tips to take your game to the next level. Now let's take a look at what if black tries to defend the knight the other way with knight to b4. And because the knight now is threatening to capture on c2 with check, forking our rook on a1, here we just castle first. Again, black has to play pawn to c6 to try and bring extra defenders to protect the knight on d5. And now again, same idea, we push up our pawn to d4, trying to open up the e file for our pieces to attack the king. And here, if black plays knight takes c2, trying to prevent our rook from going to e1, and also attacking our rook on a1, and maybe also trying to capture back our pawn on d4, looks like a good move for black. But actually here, we just capture our pawn on e5. This capturing pawn move might seem outrageous because we are just sacrificing another rook, right? With knight takes a1, and we are already down a rook at the knight. But if you guys can see the evaluation bar on the left side, it shows that white is completely winning even though we're down one rook and one knight. So how do we do it? In this position, we just capture the knight on d5, black has to capture back, and now we play rook to d1. Rook, we bring in an extra piece to attack the pawn on d5, and black cannot capture our bishop because he will just lose his queen. If black tries to develop his bishop with a move like bishop to e7, now we just capture the pawn, rook takes d5, and this position is just completely losing for black, as on the next move, we just move our rook away. We're also threatening to attack the queen, and it is actually checkmate on the next move because the king has nowhere to run. So that is what would happen if black chooses to capture our pawn on c2. So now let's take a look at what if black captures this way instead. If black captures our pawn on d4, now first we capture knight on d5 with check. With our bishop, he has to take back with the knight, and now we give the check rook to e1. Black has to play king to d6 because his king has to defend the d5 square as well. Because if he plays into d7 back, we just capture the knight on d5, and after pawn takes, we take with the queen with check, and it's almost checkmate soon. So black has to play king to d6, and now here comes the killer move, which is bishop to g5. We sacrifice another bishop, but actually black cannot take our bishop due to knight e4 check. Our knight forks the king and the queen, and we win the queen. So black cannot capture, and let's say he tries to block will block our bishop with his own bishop. Here comes the second killing blow, which is rook takes e7. Again, we sacrifice another rook on top of the knight we've sacrificed earlier. And again, look at the evaluation bar. It just shows that white is completely winning because after knight takes e7, we bring in our other rook to e1, putting extra pressure on the knight. And if black tries to block our e-file, block our rook on the e-file with his bishop to e6, now we just give check with our knight. King goes back to c7, move our knight forward, knight to c5, attacking the bishop. And since these two pieces are under attack, if he moves the bishop, we just capture the knight on e7, we win back our piece, and this position is just completely winning because now we have another pin with the bishop. Both black's rooks are completely useless in the corner and all of our white's pieces are involved in this attack. So instead of bishop to e6, if black tries to defend the knight this way with the rook to e8, now all we have to do is give check with our bishop f4 check, and actually here it's almost checkmate for black already. If he moves his king back to d7, we just give check again here with our queen. His king has no more moves. He has to block with the knight, capture. Again, his king has no moves. He has to block with the rook, and we give checkmate. And if his king chooses to escape this way, king to c5, we have a forced checkmate in 4 moves. Pause the video and take some time to try to find it. Very easy, right? We just play knight to a4 check. Now the king has 3 moves. If he goes king to c4, we give checkmate this way. And it doesn't matter if he plays king to b5 or king to b4, both are the same because again, we give check here. Now the king has 2 moves and it doesn't matter where he go. If he plays king a5, we give check with our bishop first. Now the king has to go to a6, only move, and we give checkmate with the knight. And vice versa, if the king goes to a6 first, we give check with the knight. The king only has 1 move, and now we give checkmate with the bishop. So a pretty checkmate with the king at the edge of the board, as the king has run all the way here from e8 all the way to the side, to the a side, and get checkmated. And as you guys can see, black's pieces, even though black has a couple of pieces and he still has the material advantage, none of his pieces are able to come to the defense of the king. And that concludes our video on the fried liver attack. We've discussed the power of this opening and how to launch a devastating attack on the black's king, potentially leading to a quick win. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more chess content. In the comments below, let us know which checkmate was your favorite or which variation would you try in the real game. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.